Hey friend, did you know that you could use your phone as a remote for perfectly recorded handheld camera movements reframed from your 360 action cameras in a matter of moments? This is one of the many updated and improved features in Insta360's updated mobile app, and they keep making it more fun and easy to get amazing professional results out of your 360 cameras without having it be a nightmare, because the biggest strength of these cameras is that it can look in every direction at once, which also means you have to tell it where to look. Or you don't have to tell it all the time now because there's these new improved auto shot selecting features with auto panning camera moves. I want to jump into my favorite tool to use these days, and that is the viewfinder mode in both quick and the pro editing. This is super rad. It is so helpful for getting a natural feeling shot that I actually find really hard to replicate if I spent hours doing it on the computers. Let's just dive right into it. First step is you want to connect to the camera you want to reframe the clips from. So today we're going to be doing it from the X4. And you also want to make sure that your app is up to date. It's a free update from the App Store, so make sure you go do that. Once you're connected, you can click the album and see all of the clips. I like at this stage putting in headphones because it really helps for the reframing process and kind of reliving the moment, if you will. Another tool that I like using for reframing is just a camera cage. It gives a little bit more form factor to the phone as you're wanting to pan it around. This isn't necessary, but it's kind of a fun extra step if you want to feel like James Cameron filming Avatar. I've actually been going in and reframing a bunch of older clips that I previously recorded a long time ago. So you can actually take those clips on your computer, add them to a micro SD card, put that back into a camera, reconnect to it, and then you can take full advantage of these new AI tools and also the updated viewfinder modes. If you open a clip from the album, you've got these three edit modes at the top: AI, Quick, and Pro. We're going to go to Pro Quick, and I'm going to show you Deep Track to explain why we would want to use these other new updated settings. So drag your box over the subject matter, and this will perfectly track the subject matter. The problem though is sometimes you want a framing that feels more cinematic or changes angle midway through. Sometimes we want to spice it up a little bit. Let me show you how to do that. So if we go to the quick editing tab, you now have gyroscope abilities right there fast on your phone. So you can pan around with your thumb just directly on the screen. On the right-hand side, you can open up a joystick for zooming in or zooming out. And you've got a thumb control down in the center for also more smooth camera inputs. But as you move your phone around now, you will reframe. So what I like to do is find a framing I want to start with and then hit the record down in the center. And now you can just pan around wherever you want to look. So we can get an angle that shows more of the scenery and maybe a more cinematic framing than we were getting in the tracking mode. And one thing you want to pay attention to here is in the top right, you get a viewfinder showing what perspective from the whole shot you're actually seeing. When you're done, you can hit stop record and it will save it down to the left-hand corner. And if you click into that, you can actually see all the quick reframes that you've done in this session so far, and you can export it. So click custom export if you want the best settings and configure it accordingly. What I like about using the quick mode is that you can actually do multiples of these reframes in a same session, and it will set in and out points for each new option that you're doing just based off where you recorded your inputs. So here I'm going to do another option where I'm panning more down to the ocean floor at the start, and then I look up, and then I'm going to turn back towards the obstacle. So I often like doing multiple versions as I kind of get a feel for what kind of camera movement I want to go for. And these are the kinds of shots that if I wanted to keyframe this movement, it would take me a while, especially if I want to get the keyframes to feel natural. So now as we do more of these options, we can click through them in the left corner and we can delete the ones that maybe we don't like. We can trim the handles, and then you can export those all in one go and have all the options to pick from. I genuinely enjoy this process. It's so much more fun than keyframing or doing anything tedious like that. And the end results look great. I like that you can bias the framing to something that you might find more cinematic to your tastes. And this kind of adds up to my main objective. I'm often using, like we're showing vertical options here, but I'm often using horizontal reframes inside of my actual films. So this genuinely gets me a result that matches the style I'm going for while taking advantage of the 360 camera, which can look in every direction. And I'm showing you an example here where I'm using the slider on the right-hand side to actually change the frame field of view as the shot is going on. So if you want to zoom in towards a person, Let's talk about export settings for a moment. If you use quick mode, you've got this option for quick export. And if you click quick export, it will just automatically save to your camera roll immediately, no rendering required. I always want the best quality possible, so I hit custom export and choose the settings that are the max available for the mode that I shot in. What I appreciate about filming with 360 action cameras is that this is essentially all I use a majority of the time for mounting this in all sorts of different positions. I was just on a production the other day and we wanted some behind the scenes of these rolling shots we were doing of a Lamborghini Murcielago. And I just clamped this right next to the suspension arm and got these awesome behind the scenes shots. I did the same in a helicopter later in the day. Honestly, this heavy duty clamp and a selfie stick, I mean, that's like all you need to get started, which is really awesome because the biggest strength is that it films everywhere, but then that means you've also got to select your shots. And that's what I appreciate about Insta360 putting so much effort into updating the app and putting new features that make it easier and more fun to use. I think that's a key part about why we like using these things for memories and our own adventures, is that we actually want it to be a good experience and not just be super overwhelming. So if you don't have a 360 camera yet, almost all the shots in this video are with the X4. I really like this because it has high frame rate modes that look amazing for slowing things down. And it's got these premium lens guards. I use this when I clamped it to the bike as my daughter was learning how to ride her bike. She could crash it into the grass and I didn't have to worry about the lenses actually scratching. So you can take advantage of a special offer in the description. The first 25 people get an included extended selfie stick, which is awesome. Thank you Insta360 for sponsoring this video. We're going to talk about the fancy AI updated features in a moment, and you're definitely going to want to stick around for that. But first, I wanted to give Pro Mode some love while also talking about some of the different shot examples that I think this works really well for. Pro Mode got some awesome updates where we can now use these pre-automated camera moves, and it also has the same features and capabilities that Quick Mode does, except it places it down onto the clip in the timeline. I'll explain more what I mean by that in a moment. But again, if we use the deep tracking mode, it will do an amazing job tracking a subject matter and holding it in the center of a frame. It does this so well. But sometimes you want to pan the camera to show the friend that you're skiing with, or just frame the shot in a way that you personally feel is more cinematic. And you can do this through keyframing. It just takes a long time. All of the functionality inside of Pro Mode is basically built around the yellow plus icon on the timeline. Click that and you can add whatever you want. You can add camera movements. In this case, we're going to actually start with doing a tracked mode, and that will show up in green on your timeline. And you can actually drag the handles of that bigger or smaller if you want to trim off the end of it. But what we're going to do is we're going to transition from a tracked mode, and we're going to go over into what's called viewfinder mode, where we can record gyroscopic inputs. So I'm going to go to where I want to start recording, hit plus, hit viewfinder, and now we have an interface that's similar to Quick, but a little bit different of a layout, but the functionality is the same. So hit record to start recording your inputs, and now you can pan around your camera. You can slide the zoom control in and out. You can also pinch and zoom on the screen, record the camera movement that you like. When you're done, you can hit stop record. And now that camera movement will actually be labeled on the timeline as a red section. And similar to the tracking section, you can actually drag the handles of that in and out. But you'll notice here that it transitions between the two seamlessly. So this is actually really practical, where if you want to combine all the tools into one experience, you can do that. To really drive home why this gyroscope mode is so powerful is that if we wanted to do a POV shot like mountain biking here, I wouldn't have many options for holding my framing forward, because if I wanted to use a tracking mode, there's nothing to track. If you tried to track this forward, it would just completely glitch out because there's nothing in the frame for it to lock onto that's steady in the front. And what I would do then is use something called direction lock. So if you go over into the settings, you can change the base mode over where it's going to try hold its orientation forward as best it can. This works for certain scenarios like car mounts or different things, but with an action sport, when the camera's moving around so much, it just kind of overwhelms the accelerometer, and it doesn't really know what's going on, and it kind of gets a framing that feels clunky. It doesn't feel like what it felt like to actually do the activity. Where if we compare that now to using gyroscope handheld inputs, it has an entirely different feel. Like this feels like a floating cable cam look where the bike is floating underneath and kind of moving around. And this is the kind of feel that is more what it felt like for me to actually do the activity, and I think communicates better to the audience at home what this experience actually felt like. Now let's talk about the AI tools. If you go to the AI editing tab and hit AI analyze, it will analyze through your clip. I'll talk about the types of clips I think this feature will work the best for. But right now it's just playing back to us an auto-selected AI edited selection of shots from this entire clip. And it actually picked out some moments that I personally had missed earlier when I was going through this footage, which I thought was pretty awesome. And it will kind of pick and choose different camera movements and things that it think might be relevant. But what's really powerful here is that this is all customizable once you've AI processed your clip. So to customize things even further, you can hit edit in the bottom right corner, hit edit again, and it will show you all of the AI highlights. Now we can click and adjust any of these individually. So if you click through, you can now change the custom movement from over 40 different presets for whatever best suits your edit. If you want to go more of a transition style, a more flashy style, I like some of the slow pull out ones. So instead of needing to manually keyframe animate this, it will just give me it down on the timeline. We can choose from a ton of different options here. And if you see down the blue handles on the timeline, you can drag those longer or shorter, and that will change the duration that the preset takes place. You can also click and tap on the screen and drag around to reframe the starting framing of the movement. Again, there's just so many options here. And if you really like flashy 360 edits, I think you'll have a ton of fun diving into all these different modes. There's just like way too many for me to cover. If you time them back to back, you can actually get some pretty cool transitions from one to the other. You can drag the blue handles of the camera movement to change it either longer or shorter. But just make sure that you actually go out and adjust the length of the clip too. And so if you go over to the clip adjust, you can see in the blue where the camera movement is taking place. And so make sure that you're using enough of the clip so that way the camera movement can play out through its full duration. And you can do that by just adjusting the handles here. If you don't want to use the auto edit together, you can actually go through and just see the auto highlighted clips and different moments that it pulled out for you by clicking clips in the bottom left. If you see at the top header here, it's identified and categorized a bunch of them from based off what it sees in the clip. And these will actually change per the activity that you're doing and what it's been able to identify, from scenic moments to sports highlights to companion moments. And you can click through and adjust the handles on these as well. You can adjust the point of view if you want the framing to be a little different. I found there's certain activities that it does a better job AI generating these kind of highlights. So for me, the selfie stick style shots where I'm snowboarding on a surfboard, of course, not all of them are great. Sometimes I'm adjusting the camera or cleaning off the lens. So if you don't want to select all of the clips, you can go through and click the yellow checkbox in the center of the clip, and it will be only the ones that you've selected that you will actually export in the next step. So you can take all these AI generated moments and export just those moments into your camera roll, which is honestly the way that I'll probably most often do this, because then you can take these clips and you can put them into Instagram and you can edit them with whatever templates for reels that you're going to use, or you can put them into a dedicated mobile editor like CapCut or something like that and do whatever kind of editing to music that you might prefer to do in those workflows by exporting all of the highlights in one go straight to your camera roll. This is a really fast way to get a lot of highlights out of a 30-minute clip. That's going to be it for this one. If you want a deep dive of my entire editing process beginning to end, I actually did a 30-minute editing tutorial of all the different methods that I do, from the Studio app to actually editing inside of your software, if it's Premiere or Final Cut. I did a whole walkthrough over on the Adventure Film Academy. That's where I do a lot of my longer form teaching stuff. If you're interested in that, go subscribe there. That's it for this one. Remember, life's better when you make stuff. Peace.